Good afternoon and welcome to another version of the Tripp Scott webcast. And with us today is the veteran Sun-Sentinel reporter, former editorial page editor of the Sun-Sentinel and author of the novel Queen of the Heavens, based upon ancient Egyptian context. And so today we have Kingsley Guy. Welcome, Kingsley.
Thank you. How are you doing, Ed?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Hey, you know, I saw a couple articles ago. You kind of took to task the Republican Party, and and I got to say, you know, I didn't disagree with what you said, but where do you think the status of the party is, both locally and on a national level?
Well, not only did I take to task the Republican Party, the voters took to task the Republican Party.
They did, and honestly, deservingly so.
Yeah, and I think the best description of the Republican Party I ever heard was by David Broder, the late Washington Post columnist, made back during the Reagan administration. He said it's a coalition of closet libertarians and Latter-day Puritans. Now, back during the Reagan years, I think the closet libertarians sort of had the control of the party. Now I think possibly the Latter-day Puritans have control of the party. When you put into the platform something like, even if a woman is raped, she should not be able to get an abortion legally or have even taken after, a morning after pill. I mean, this is absolutely absurd. I don't know how many people I've talked to said, I can't not vote for Romney when you've got, and Paul Ryan, who actually supported that in a congressional vote. So, I mean, that's part of it right there. That's only part of it.
Well, let's stop there just for a second, because there were comments made during the campaign by senatorial candidates that really cost Romney.
Oh, absolutely.
And confirmed kind of the 1950s viewpoint of the Republican Party, at least in some people's minds.
Yeah, and if you take a look at not only this election, where they lost probably 2 or 3 Senate seats, probably 3 Senate seats, but the previous election where they lost 2 or 3 Senate seats, I mean, conceivably the Republicans could have control of the Senate if the Republicans had put out their candidates that had a chance of winning and weren't going to make these absurd statements. So I think the Tea Party energized the Republican Party in 2010. You take a look at state legislatures, governorships, strong Republican control in that aspect of it, and certainly the control of the House of Representatives in 2010. But are we hitting a backlash now?
But for people who are watching this, when you say Tea Party, that's a tough definition.
It is.
How do you define Tea Party activists?
Well, it is an amorphous group.
It is.
A very amorphous group. So when I say Tea Party in the broadest sense, I mean, you had this recognition that, hey, something had to be done about the debt, something had to be done about the deficit, but yet you can. There is a big difference between, say, Marco Rubio, who had strong support in 2010, obviously, and some of the other candidates that were put forth for Senate seats. A big difference between the two. You just cannot nominate anybody and expect them.
So if you had 3 reasons, why did Mitt Romney lose and the party lose ground during this past election? 1,
Mitt Romney ran a terrible campaign, which is becoming more and more obvious. 2, I think, like I said, the Latter-day Puritan closet libertarian is another reason, and immigration, certainly immigration, and the approach that the Republicans have taken towards immigration, and the absolute, look at the Hispanic vote, 71% of the Hispanic vote.
That's troubling.
Democrat.
Right.
Not only among Hispanics, you take a look upon Asian Americans, right. The same ratio as with Hispanics, and you've got a rapidly growing Asian population as well.
So let's zoom ahead now, post-election. Mm-hmm. We've gone through the fiscal cliff. We're going to go through the debate regarding the debt ceiling. We're going to have discussions around the sequester. Where should the party be positioning itself, not only for the benefit of itself, but frankly for the benefit of the country? What's the solutions here?
Well, I think certainly when it comes to the debt, I think we're on stronger grounds here. The Republicans are on stronger ground. Fiscal responsibility.
Well, not total strong grounds, because there's a handful of Republican Congresses in the past that spent very similar to some Democrats.
But I'm talking about in the future. I mean, you take a look at a $16.4 trillion national debt. You look at what is $120 trillion in unmet liabilities, right, and obligations. This spells the destruction of the United States of America as we know it if the debt isn't handled.
So here's the question. Ultimately, does the Republican Party, is the Republican Party going to situate itself as more of of we're just not the Democrats and we're a little bit like Democrat light? Or are we going to show real leadership around basically turning the tide of kind of the fiscal, what I would term fiscal irresponsibility?
If you want to talk about any single issue that could really, I think, galvanize voters behind the GOP, is dealing with the tax code. We have got, last time I looked, there were like 74,000 pages in the tax code and related documentation to the tax code, as opposed to 400 pages back in 1913. We went from 400 pages to 74,000 pages. It's ridiculous, the tax code.
I don't disagree with you, but isn't the problem more of a spending problem as opposed to a revenue problem? I mean, what do you do with entitlements? I mean, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and defense. I mean, do we put defense on the table?
I think everything has to be on the table. You take a look at any bureaucracy, and the bloat is going to be enormous. But the most expensive military is the second best military. I would hate to see the United States come to the point where our national interests are put at stake because we just don't have the firepower or personnel to defend America's interests. The question is, what are America's interests?
But isn't ultimately the leadership, the party, isn't the party driven by individuals? So as an example, in the 1979 campaign, run up to the 1980 campaign, Ronald Reagan took the reins, ultimately was nominated, ultimately became president, were reelected, basically defined what it meant to be a Republican, or redefined what it meant to be a Republican at that time, at a time when the party was really kind of floundering about. Who do you see out there who can literally change the tide of the direction and, how would I say, the conviction of the party on very tough issues?
Yeah, well, you take a look back at the Reagan, when he ran, he had a coherent policy prescription, and he had superb people around him pushing these things. You take a look at some of the Reagan personnel, James Baker, George P. Schultz, I mean, brilliant
These are
people.
type N people.
Yeah. Now today, Marco Rubio, I think, is a person who has, one of the things I've noticed about Rubio, he can take complicated issues, but yet he can explain them in ways that are easily understandable by average voters. And I think he certainly has the ability to articulate policy prescriptions. Certainly he's taking the lead on immigration. And I think this is something that the Republican Party needs to get out ahead of the Democratic Party on. So, Rubio certainly would be one. I'd say Jeb Bush would be another person who could do it. The question is, is the country suffering from Bush fatigue? He's made some indications that he might be interested in a presidential run. I think if he makes that run, he's got the nomination. If he doesn't make that run, Marco Rubio is going to be on the ticket one way or the other. Republicans have got to have Florida and its 29 electoral votes.
The math doesn't work otherwise, does it?
No, it does not.
No, like President Clinton said, it's about the math. So can't ignore Florida. Let me switch gears. Let's talk about local.
Okay.
One of the surprising races, or the most surprising, was the sheriff's race this time. Do you see that ever becoming a nonpartisan?
Well, I've heard that there's some people who want to try to get the sheriff's race changed to nonpartisan. Of course, Sheriff Lamberti, Republican, lost to Scott Israel, a Democrat, and it surprised and shocked a few people. Now, the previous election, Lamberti, of course, was able to win. Right. Broward County is 2/3 Democrat, registrations over Republicans, and certainly that factor with the large turnout of the election and the hyper-partisanship of this election played into Sheriff Lamberti's defeat this time around.
I mean, is it a good government issue? I mean, because it can't be driven by whether or not, as an example, I mean, we don't wish Sheriff Israel ill will, and it can't be driven simply to try to resurrect Sheriff Lamberti, because ultimately we're we're left with the structure of government, if it's voted in as a nonpartisan, is it good governance?
I think it would be, and not only the sheriff's race, but other offices in Broward County as well. Property appraiser, clerk of the courts. Yes, I think that's good government. I think might also be something to consider resurrecting. Is some sort of strong executive leadership, elected executive leadership for Broward County. Then you could possibly take the sheriff and not have the sheriff elected, but appoint a professional
fold him in under an elected mayor or executive.
Yeah, like you might have in New York City, for instance. And we've got a county of what, 1 point, I don't know how many, 3 million,
1.8, yeah,
or 8, yeah, that high now. And I think if you look at the county in general, caught between Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County, I mean, we need some sort of, I think, leadership in this county in order to focus attention on what is Broward County and what is Broward County going to become. There's even talk now about changing the name of the county to Fort Lauderdale County to kind of focus attention on it.
I'm not so sure people out in Pembroke Pines would appreciate that much.
And Hollywood in particular.
Right, exactly.
Maybe we could start just with Port Everglades and change that to Fort Lauderdale, although Hollywood will walk on that until the end of time. But
Kingsley, as always, thank you for the time. It's always provocative to have you come in and talk to us, and we'd like to see more of you, and appreciate it, and look forward to your columns. Okay. Making sure that the libertarian Republican view still remains in the Sun Sentinel. I know that's a difficult position.
It is. Hey, we do our best. So
I appreciate
great to be
that.
here, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.